Hi everyone in the meeting room and as well on Instagram. So welcome to our second last guest lecture of the symposium. We are currently at day 3 of the symposium. So it's titled "ROLLBACK 21: Digital Futures Among an Earthly Land," where we consider the roles that digital technology plays in our lives. And as the pandemic pushes us further into the digital realm, we thought it would be nice during the Easter recess to take a step back and consider the technologies and how it intersects with our physical life. So just to plug our next event after this, we have Jem Southern, a seminal British landscape photographer, coming to speak to us at 3 p.m. And he will be in conversation with Harvey Gost, and he'll just basically talk about his artistic practice and processes and things like that. And so we have a lot to discuss. So I shall not ramble on further. So I'll just like to introduce this lecture. This lecture is about crypto art and about non-fungible tokens, or more well known as NFTs. So I'm delighted to have Clara here today, all the way from Singapore, to give us a lecture on this. And I'll just give a brief introduction, her bio introduction. So Clara Pei is an arts writer and researcher based in Singapore. She completed her BA in economics at Yale NUS College and MA in history of art at the Courtauld Institute of Art, and she has held positions at Christie's New York, the 58th Venice Biennale, and most recently the Nanyang Technological University Center for Contemporary Art Singapore. So currently she's a lecturer at LaSalle College of Arts, where she teaches visual culture and visual analysis. So thank you so much for your time, Clara. So you want to try to share a screen?
Sure. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Isaiah, Maddie, Jasper, and everyone else from Void and on the team. Let me just try and share screen. This is my first time presenting on Teams, so bear with me if we have any technical difficulties. And also, I cannot see anything from Teams at all when I'm in full screen, as I am now. So if anything goes wrong, Isaiah, I trust you to give me a shout.
I'll watch your back.
Sure, great. So yeah,
maybe we try switching slides first. Let's see if that works.
Okay. Does this work?
Nah, no.
Really?
Yeah, maybe I think we should just do it outside the screen. It might be a bit ugly, but
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That's the thing about Teams. It's not that intuitive.
Okay.
So
funny that for a talk about tech, I am struggling with the tech. Okay. How is this?
Yep. No, it's perfect.
Okay, great. So yeah, I think Isaiah and I are going to have a conversation with different questions, talking about different aspects relating to NFTs after this. So I'm just going to give you a very short and brief primer on what NFTs are so we can all be on the same page. I'll try not to use any kind of jargon, but yeah, I'll do my best. So to start us off, I know many of you are probably very familiar with this already, but what is a non-fungible token? To break that down, we can first start to think about what fungibility is. So fungibility is the ability of a good or asset to be interchangeable with another good or asset of the same type. An easy way to think about this is if you have one British pound and then you have another British pound, you can interswap them, change them, exchange them. There's absolutely no problem with that because they're of equal value. Non-fungibility then refers to different units of the same good and asset that cannot be interchanged or exchanged for each other because they do not represent the same value, so they're unique. The example I have here is CryptoKitties. It was one of the first NFT projects that really went mainstream and became very popular. It was released by Dapper Labs in 2017 and is a blockchain game that runs on Ethereum, which is one of the main blockchains that a lot of NFTs are created on. Okay, cool. So now that we know what fungibility is about, NFTs basically can be thought of as a unique digital asset that represents the ownership of something. So the NFT itself references a file. And that file can be a digital image, it can be a video, it can be an audio file, etc., etc. We'll look at some different examples of NFTs later on. But it's very important for us to recognize that the NFTs, they're not the artwork itself, but rather they are the digital ownership, the digital asset that represents ownership that refers to an artwork. So you can think of it more as for those of us who are more familiar with the art world and the art market, think of them as certificates of authenticity and provenance, but on the blockchain. So for those of us who are less familiar with the blockchain, all that really matters for this context now is, blockchain is a distributed, decentralized network of computers, data ledgers, and there are some important characteristics about the blockchain that's important for us to think about with relation to NFTs. So one is decentralized, so that means that no one single power or authority can touch or kind of alter, change data that is on the blockchain. It's immutable, so the transactional records that are stored on blockchain cannot be touched and altered after it has occurred and has been stored on the blockchain. So, in the art market, sometimes when a sale happens, say in the secondary market, in the private sales, we may not know what price that was, that information may not be made public, but because this transaction with NFTs is happening on the blockchain, there's some level of transparency there. Technically, every transaction should be able to be tracked. And if you really want to track and trace it, you can trace down, from which wallet address the transaction originated from, and that data cannot be changed or hidden after it's been done. And we'll see this a little later. So yeah, something also very important to note is that the NFT is not a medium necessarily. So the works that are being minted on NFTs, they are works, most of the time, they are works that existed before NFTs, came along. There are works that could exist without NFTs. So the NFT itself is not the medium onto which artists need to create work. Although I will include some examples that show how NFTs can allow the work to integrate some level of that transactional element. Nor is NFTs an artistic movement. A lot of people are talking about NFTs being some kind of crypto renaissance, and I don't know, maybe that is the case, but NFTs themselves do not necessarily have specific ideological kind of bindings in the way that many artistic movements might have. Rather, it might be useful for us to think of NFTs more as a channel for sales and distribution, a way to sell and buy and then track the record of sales. Okay, so I just wanted to show you a process of how, something to unpack that relationship of the digital token itself to the file that it refers to. So when the Beeple sale happened, a lot of people were like, okay, so, this guy spent $69 million buying this JPEG, and actually everyone can kind of go online and download this JPEG. Yes, that is true. However, what that person is actually purchasing, right, as we've defined, is the ownership of that JPEG, which is tied to that buyer. But everyone can sort of download that file, and I'll show you exactly how. So this is Pussy Riot, the feminist group's page on Foundation, one of the NFT platforms. I am on one of their NFTs. I'm scrolling down. I go to look at the IPFS file. IPFS is basically a peer-to-peer file storage network. I've located the IPFS address, and now I've gone in to look for this file, and there you have it. And then I have downloaded this file, and this is the file that is tied to the NFT. Now I've downloaded it on my computer. I can, use it however I want, I suppose. But no matter how many times this is downloaded or shared, whatever people would do to it, in the way that people were interacting with digital media before NFTs came along, those things, still hold true. But that ownership itself, it's still unique. And that's, I guess, a kind of scarcity, a kind of digital scarcity that wasn't necessarily as commonplace or as easy to maintain and manufacture before NFTs came along, even though some digital artists have been kind of creating digital certificates of authenticity even before this to protect their ownership and copyright. So one of the potential benefits, sorry, not one of the potential benefits, but one of the biggest benefits that NFTs can bring is the ability for digital creators to claim ownership of the work that they're creating. So here's an example of a meme. This is the Bad Luck Brian meme. Essentially, this guy, he had a bad yearbook photo. His friend put up this photo on the left that we see here onto Reddit, and then it became a whole very popular meme. This meme has been, as you can see on the right, appropriated, reused in a million different contexts. But when it was only being shared around as a meme, as this image, this guy in the photo here wasn't really getting any direct credit. He wasn't really able to benefit off of his image in a very real way. But very recently, he sold off this image, just like the image itself, the meme, the very original meme. He sold it as an NFT, and he made 20 Ether. So Ether is the main currency on Ethereum. And at the time when I took the screenshot, which was a couple of days ago, 20 Ether was equivalent to 41,000 US dollars. So yeah, now he's made more than 41,000 US dollars based off this meme that has been spreading around, bringing joy and laughter to lots of people for years. But now he's finally able to kind of claim ownership over it and benefit off of his content, right? And that's a very real way for creators to use this technology and to protect their copyright in a way that wasn't as accessible before. A lot of people are asking, okay, cool, so can NFTs disrupt the art market? I don't know, but one thing about NFTs is, as we've talked about with, that transparency, that traceability, blockchain data being immutable, something that we are seeing a lot of NFT platforms do is that, you can see the bidding history on a specific NFT that has gone on public auction. So I am on the page the NFT page of the Pussy Riot NFT that we saw earlier, and you can see every single person that bid on it, what price they bid at. And then if you really want to, you can also find out their wallet address, and you can see when this bid was placed. And that's something that you cannot really observe at an art auction, right? That's say happening at Christie's or Sotheby's, even if you were in the room yourself. There's always so much happening with, say written bids, who's bidding on the phone, is there a reserve? You don't always know all of that information, whereas, in an NFT, a lot of that information has become accessible and transparent. So the kind of asymmetric information that traditional auction houses have held over the art market and the secondary market, traditionally, maybe something will change over there. I don't know, but it certainly introduces a new way for art sales to happen and be tracked. But art, so I think a lot of the conversations that have been happening around NFTs and a lot of the stuff that we're reading about in the news has to do with NFTs' crazy prices, or, its potential for the market, the possibilities of tapping into new collector bases. And all those are very real possibilities. But a lot of people are also very skeptical of how NFTs can be a genuine platform for interesting experimental art. So before Isaiah and I move into a further conversation and unpack some of the bigger questions, I wanted to show you 4 projects of NFTs. These NFTs are minted on Hikeknung, which is a up-and-coming kind of NFT platform that runs on Tezos. It's a more energy-efficient blockchain. Yeah. So this first project I want to show you is by Leander Herzog. This is a screen recording of the file. Oh, you can't see the link. Okay, here you go. So this NFT is actually interactive because he minted it with the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code. I don't even know how. I spoke to the artist, but it's just pure magic to me. So you can go onto the website with the link here. You can interact with this work. He was actually giving it out for free, so I collected this work, and every single time I interact with it, the image changes. And that level of interactability, me now being able to own this piece of digital art, I think a lot of that is only possible because of NFTs. And then this work is also a very interesting experiment. So this work, when it was first uploaded online, the artist uploaded it in 15 times 15 like pixels, and every single time a transaction occurs, so when it is being resold, then that gets recorded, and then that will actually, the code will actually go and like improve the pixelation on the image. So right now the image that we're seeing is in 24 times 24. And as this work gets resold more and more times, the work itself will become clearer and clearer. So again, that level, there's this level of interactability, the transactional nature of the NFTs, that like continuous resale market structure is built into the work itself. So it really makes use of its quality of being an NFT very meaningfully. This work is by one of my personal favorite AI net artists. His name is Mario Klingemann. This work is kind of a social experiment. So again, the work interacts with its transactional nature as an NFT. So these codes that you are seeing on the screen, I'm just going to enlarge them in case they're too small. These are actually Tetsuo's wallet addresses, and they're the wallet addresses of the people who have swapped this work, who have bought this work. He was listing it for free. So one of these is my wallet address. But yeah, so when you actually collect this work, your wallet address gets printed onto the NFT itself, and you become a part of that artwork. You become a part of the artwork's identity and aesthetic, and you leave your footprint forever. However, if you swap more than one of these free artworks, which some people are doing because they're like, oh, maybe it'll sell more in the future, or if you put yours up for sale, even though this work was, sort of given to the community for free, then your wallet will be removed from the list, almost like a punishment, or just, I guess, to give you a disincentive if you consider this as a behavioral experiment. Again, for me, that aspect of really interrogating the transactional nature of NFTs was what was very interesting about the work. And as you can see from, this work wasn't given for free, but it was like 1 Tetsuo, so it was like $4. So yeah, super affordable. This work was put up for free. A lot of these interesting experiments that are happening on this like Hikek New community were about community sharing, where it's about playing with the art form, playing with like all the different possibilities that we can try with NFTs. So that community idea of sharing and experimenting together was very big, and that's kind of why you're hearing about these very, very cheap or free even like NFTs being given away, which is kind of different from the stuff you might have been hearing about in the news. And then this last one I learned about just I think 2 days ago. So this one is called Fragments of the Cross. It's actually a sound work. I wasn't able to record it properly, and I couldn't embed an SVG file here, but let me just show you what it might look like. I highly encourage you to go onto this link and listen to the work itself. It's actually really beautiful. But basically, this is also an interactive, it's more of a music sketchbook almost. So these different audio files were recorded when keyboard player Jules Maxwell and guitarist Stevie Jones were trying to improvise daily, and they recorded all these different sound clips, and then they recorded, a little bit of information about the day that it was on. They gave some information about the music, and then this is the NFT that sold. So if you purchase this NFT, then essentially you get this SVG file that is interactive, and you can pick and choose and interact with it and play different clips at different times, and it comes as like a single token that gets attached to your e-wallet. So again, it's really playing with the possibilities of NFTs, introducing a way of listening to music that maybe we haven't really thought about before. That's very interesting. So that is the little primer that I wanted to give you. I think I've just stopped sharing, right? Isaiah, you're on mute.
I'm
not Isaiah, sure I think you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, it happened. But anyway, thanks, Clara, for such there's so much information about NFTs. So new and just condensed, so well condensed to 20 minutes. So, thanks for the primer. And before we move into the conversation, I just want to mention that this is not professional advice. Like, if you want to if you want to invest in NFTs or cryptocurrencies, it's a highly volatile and risky market. So please don't quote us on anything. Do your research, and as well as we have minted a memorandum of the talk on the blockchain as.
Isaiah, I think we lost you again.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Where did I get cut off at?
Blockchain.
Oh, okay. We basically I basically minted like a memorandum of this talk on the blockchain, and it's free to collect on the platform that Clara has just mentioned. So if you want to go and collect, feel free to just get your hands on to kind of like understand like what the collecting process is and how wallets work, and yeah. So I think to start off with this conversation that we have, so why are NFTs like suddenly so popular? Because I mean, NFTs have been around since like 2012, 2013. So is there a reason why this whole like popularity of NFT, like what exactly like catalyzed it?
I don't know if there's one single event that really pushed this into like the mainstream, but I think one thing is, in this year, for the past couple of months, you've been seeing a huge spike in interest in cryptocurrencies with people like Elon Musk, really getting in on Bitcoin and everything like that. So there's already this increased interest in everything crypto related in general. And I think for some of the artists I've spoken to, they've been working in the physical realm for a long time, but with COVID, with all these lockdowns, now that the physical is not as feasible, they've turned to the digital, and then they've started experimenting with, okay, what are the possibilities happening here? And with the people still, it really kind of pushed NFTs into mainstream consciousness with the crazy pricing. It attracted a lot of media attention, and people started realizing, okay, this technology is out there. Can we make money with it? What are the possibilities that we can achieve with it? So yeah, I guess a lot of different factors at work, perhaps.
Yeah, no, which leads us nicely into the next kind of like question I have, and also picking up on the on what you've presented about NFTs as like a disrupting force to the art market, and as well as a different like I mean, NFTs are poised as also as like a to give artists like a different like economic reality as well. So if I'm not sure how everyone knows, but basically when you mint an NFT online and it gets resold, the artist like earns a commission. So it's usually like around like 10%, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
So
so I
yeah.
think that on some platforms, for example, on Noon, just because that's the only one that I really look at because it's more sustainable. On Noon, the default is 10% resale royalties, but I believe you also have the option to set your own. So it's basically done through this thing called smart contracts. Like NFTs run on. Smart contracts are basically just a set of rules that automatically run that's linked to the NFT. Yeah, I think for our purposes, that's all what we need to understand with relation to smart contracts. So in the smart contract, you can set some of these rules, like the resale royalties. And for some artists, this is a pretty big difference because with photographers, for example, right? Like if you put your work out there, say it's on Instagram, someone takes like a screenshot of it. You can't really control. Sorry, bad example, actually. Okay, so let's say you have given the rights of your work to someone, and then they have like loaned it for that time period. And then in the future, if they reuse it, even without, their legal right to do so, and you're like, oh no, I'm not getting any money or I'm not getting any credit for that, it's very hard to sort of track them down and then ensure that you can be properly compensated for your work. But with NFTs, if this work is being resold, even if it happens right entirely without your knowledge of it, you automatically get the resale royalties transferred to your wallet address because it is already there in the smart contract.
Yeah, and I guess with traditional galleries as well, like um I mean one instance that kind of like springs into mind is the very famous saga between Robin Rauschenberg and his art collector, where I think his art collector like purchased his artwork for a very meager sum of money. I think it's around like $7,000, and then he flipped his artwork and he gained a huge amount of money without receiving any royalties as well. So I guess probably in certain senses this whole idea of NFTs like allows the artist to continue like sustaining their practice like economically as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so coming back about NFTs democratizing the art market as well, like I remember that you mentioned that, like, although the NFTs are on the art market, but you know you can download the JPEG like anywhere. This whole idea of like immateriality
Yes.
that we kind of like spoke about, which is kind of like paradoxical and kind of hard to like wrap your head around, because like on one hand this JPEG, anyone can download it, anyone can have it, but at the same time you can kind of own it as well. I'm not sure if you want to expand on that.
Sure. Um, yeah, I guess, when it is something that is digital, it is still very difficult to set rules around like how a work can be interacted with, how a work can be downloaded or reshared. It's very hard to stop that happening, but um, it's kind of like owning conceptual art, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if someone purchases a conceptual art piece, what you're purchasing perhaps is the certificate of authenticity. It's the rights, a piece of paper that says you own this work that is attached to this idea. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're comfortable with that, I don't really think NFTs is such a big jump from that kind of concept. And yeah, I actually think that that's like the potential for NFTs, right? Is that even though that work is still out there, everyone can see it, you're the person that owns it. It's like everyone can take a photo of an artwork in a museum, no matter how high res, but the museum is the one that holds that artwork, that has the deeds to the work, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think I think we can kind of like speak about a little bit about people as well. But I think first, while preparing for this talk, I was just thinking about the physicality of the institution. If
Mm-hmm.
we are talking about conventional like art, like auction houses, for example, like Christie's, Sotheby's, and versus the digital intangibility of like NFTs. They're on like two separate market. Like, and as we know that all these institutions are heavily riddled in like a lot of like history, which gives them the so-called power to like say that that is art. So what kind of denotes such pieces like Beeple to command a 64 million price? What so kind of like what denotes such pieces to be art in this whole digital realm? I don't know if there's an answer, but
So you're effectively asking who are the kind of authorities in the
yeah.
realm of NFTs who get to
Mm-hmm.
dictate what is art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if there can be an answer for that even in the physical realm, right? It's like who are the, top curators, who are the museums that hold cultural capital and whatever
Mm-hmm.
they are interested in, or the people who, are the academics, the scholars who are writing about and deem it important enough to be written into like critical art history. They're the people who kind of have this power and say, right? With NFTs, because it is still such a nascent space, and again, we have to think of NFTs, I think, just as a platform. So if you just think about, yeah, like it just being a platform where people can upload files, digital, kind of content and media, then I don't know if it is necessarily so important to distinguish between what is art, what is not art. If you are a collector, then it doesn't matter. It's just about your taste and if you think that this is important enough, right? There are some platforms that are trying to curate, that are trying to distinguish quality, but overall, it is still just such a new space, and it's very hard to control some of the rules. Perhaps one of the issues relating to that is art theft. So even though this technology is supposed to be, great for protecting ownership, allowing people to claim copyrights over their work, we are seeing that because currently there's so little kind of rules and regulations, we're seeing a lot of copy minters. So people taking the files, the way that I just did with the Pussy Riot work, and then minting it as their own, and then trying to resell it and claiming it as their own, and then making money off of that. Or we have also seen other people straight up just like, taking screenshots of works from other artists, sometimes established artists or other artists who have been working for a very long time but are not so aware of NFTs, and then selling them as NFTs and making money off of those works. And the worst part of that perhaps is that once that has happened, that sale is not revocable, and that NFT can technically be destroyed, it can be burned, but yeah, it's still kind of out there further on the blockchain. Again, yeah, I think it's just that the technology itself is so new. A lot of this hasn't really been, fully explored. Communities haven't really found ways to really prevent that happening, which is quite paradoxical. But
yeah, and I mean, I'm reading somewhere on the internet saying that how like the NFT space is still relatively new, and it's kind of like the wild west of the art market, and it's largely like unregulated. But yeah, I think we can kind of like just have a like small chat around the Beeple 64 million sale at Christie, which is something quite topical to like kind of like speak about first, because there straight away after the sale there was so much interest in NFTs, and a lot of people discussing about what this move signals to the art market at large, and if even like what prompted Christie's to kind of like hail Bieber as the start of the NFT age, if I can say so. But and there has been a lot of controversy as well over the artwork that was sold in Christie's, because there were a lot of very morally questionable artwork that was featured in Bieber's collage as well. So yeah, so is that art?
I think that's a really great article out there that breaks down some of the terrible images that are part of the artwork. And we can all kind of go look at that article and then decide for ourselves. But with regards to, Christie's interest in NFTs, Christie's has been interested in blockchain technology, NFTs, for a couple of years now. In 2018, they held the Art Tech Summit, where they were already having these conversations. So it's been in the making.
Yeah, and something funny I thought about because I if I'm not wrong, the sale on Christie was not on the blockchain, right?
No, and actually, after the transaction happened, even though the collector Metaverse, which is an NFT fund based in Singapore, they made the transaction in Ether, which is a cryptocurrency. Christie's apparently accepted their royalties, their auction buyer's premium, in fiat currency, and then Beeple himself cashed out into physical money, as we say. So yeah, but that sale alone attracted apparently around 91% of the people who registered for the auction were new clients to Christie's. So I think whatever it is, that level of interest and attention and hype around NFTs managed to attract a pretty, large new crowd of potential collectors to Christie's, which indicates, right, that NFT's ability for artists, people in the art market, to tap into a new collector base, perhaps one with a very different kind of purchasing power. And that is still a very real potential for the art ecosystem, with perhaps new funding flowing in. There is very real potential for different creators to benefit properly off of NFTs, and for that to sustain their artistic practice, for that to perhaps help to sustain a more healthy, well-funded art ecosystem. I don't know, but these are possibilities that it can bring.
Yeah, and also the paradoxical thing that I'm thinking about is this whole philosophy of cryptocurrency and NFTs of one that's trying to escape the institutionalized world But when we see such a big sale at Christie's, one of the world's oldest auction houses, selling an NFT, something that is supposed to be free for everyone, or something that is not supposed to be bound by an institution. So can art escape the institutionalized art world, or do you think that there's like potential to kind of like run things in tandem?
This is my observation, and it is purely my own speculation based on my observations. But I think what this indicates is that the traditional structures in the art market are still relevant to us today, very much relevant, right? Perhaps, NFTs and artists minting on NFTs have been happening for quite some time, but the larger art world, the traditional art market and art ecosystem hasn't really been paying attention to it, because it's not like blockchain is the most accessible thing ever, right? Like, even for us to like prepare for this conversation, we both did so much research to even like fill in all the gaps of our knowledge, even though we were already looking into this. There's so much jargon around it, the intangibility of blockchain. So I think that, a lot of us weren't paying attention to it until it was maybe recognized in a way by this, right, large auction house, at least for its ability to bring in money. And being associated with a large auction house like that does give this, a different level of cultural capital, symbolic capital that perhaps on like NFTs alone, it wouldn't have accumulated so quickly. So moving forward, I don't know. I don't know if, if it is enough, or it has that potential to really disrupt the structures, the very permanent and kind of very sticky institutions in the art ecosystem. But perhaps that it's trying to open up some parallels to that like world that we see, where now you're seeing places like Decentraland, which is like this Ethereum VR space where people can buy and sell virtual land. People are hosting digital virtual exhibitions on places like this, where they have these like 3D renderings, and they have this like digital space where they're curating shows with NFT works, with digital works, and some commercial galleries that are tethered to the physical space are also doing these such experiments to see what could happen, what the potential is there. So maybe they will be able to coexist together. That's currently, I guess, like what's happening, right? Like the physical is trying to experiment with the digital, but I don't know if the digital has enough of that potential at this moment to really disrupt the physical.
Yeah, and I guess as well, the technology is like so new as well, so we just have to kind of like sit and wait, because everything changes within a span of 24 hours as well, isn't
it? Yes.
Yeah, and so before we move on to question, I think the last kind of like point, or like talking point, which might be of interest to people on on Instagram and on the call here, is about non-traditional digital arts role or space in the whole NFT marketplace. Because I guess what we see primarily on NFT space is usually more digital based artwork. So I'm thinking of like digital like illustrations, or more like what you've shown, like conceptual piece revolving around like the whole like technology, like coding and things like that. So is non-digital arts placed online, is it true to itself? Should you really market something like like a painting, or like a photograph, or like a sculpture online? So do you have any thoughts regarding that?
Yeah, my personal thoughts are that, I think with the projects that I've shown, they demonstrate that NFTs can present some very interesting openings for experimentation with digital media, for us to look at net art, digital art, AI art, generative art with a new lens, and for that to become marketable, commercials, sellable in a way that was less possible or less accessible before. And those are some very interesting potentials. For physical works, or works that really do not rely on NFTs, we do see a lot of artists minting NFTs of such works and being able to profit off of them, and support their artistic practice. I'm never mad if like genuine artists with like, genuine interests are able to find ways to sustain their practice, right? So I think that is still great, but I think, yeah, like the most interesting uses of this technology are probably ones that are able to integrate the platform into the unfolding of the work that really, respect the digital space. Because if you are, I guess, entering the metaverse and trying to mint something on the blockchain, taking up digital space, then why not make it something that really respects that space and really makes use of that space? It's like, when you are creating works, even in other more traditional mediums, right? First, you have to understand why this medium or why this particular way of this format. What does it matter? What is its place in the larger conversation? How are you contributing to that discourse? So I think, yeah, my personal take is kind of, I think those are some very important questions for people who want to mint works onto the space that should think about. For non-digital works, I think they also present like real possibilities. For example, I was speaking to this Indonesian American performance artist. His name is Antonius Oki Wirijaya. Check out his work. So he was telling me that as a performance artist in the past, what he sells or what he's able to sell to people is perhaps an experience. So they can buy tickets to his shows, his exhibitions, but he was making these videos and they were going viral on the internet under the name of Food Masku. But, he wasn't getting any money or proper credit off of those videos, those digital experiences that people were spreading around. But then he minted one of those 15-second videos that's really just like a photo documentation of a performance in a way. And then he was able to sell that NFT, and that money then allows him to make more work and support more artists. So yeah, even for works that, aren't necessarily pure digital, for performance pieces, conceptual pieces, this also, I think, presents real interesting kind of possible experimentations. But yeah, my personal kind of take is that if it is a digital technology and you're creating digital native works that really interact with the nature of NFTs, those are kinds of things that I'm most interested in.
Yeah, no, it's almost like thinking about so-called the NFT like market space or the marketplace as almost like a gallery. You kind of want to make your work like site specific to it in order to kind of like fully embrace what the space entails and what it means. But yeah, I think we have to move on to questions and answers now.
Sure.
So first we have Zahara. So I think she has two questions, so I'll just condense it into one. So she says, "Hi Clara, how can this relate to copyright issues and when it comes to art and IP?" That's the first question. The second one is, how can NFT impact the sustainability of works when it comes to digital conservation and preservation? That's a really good question.
Isaiah, if you want to jump in at any point in time, feel free to as well. I know you might have thoughts.
Okay.
I think the first one with like in relation to copyrights and IP, I think we've kind of touched on this quite a bit. Yeah. So for the second one, how can it impact the sustainability of works when it comes to digital conservation and preservation? Ooh, I don't know, because there is talk, right, that a lot of NFTs that were bought and sold for maybe high prices, the links to the files are already broken or lost, or what's happening there. As we saw just now, a lot of them are hosted on this thing called IPFS, this like peer-to-peer file storage network. If something happens to IPFS, I don't know, like maybe your file wouldn't necessarily be linked to the NFT. Maybe there's something you can be done to retrieve that file. But with regards to, say, net art, where if it's like a certain page, for example, that needs to be up and running, then when that goes away, no one's sort of paying money to like maintain that. I don't know how NFTs could necessarily prevent that. Some people are also saying that the NFTs is really, when you see it on a web page, it's like the platform, say like those marketplaces like Rarible, Foundation, Super Rare, Nung, as we keep talking about, they are just, showing the front end kind of visual manifestation of the NFT. And if the platform goes down, for example, touch wood, if Nung ever stops working for whatever reason, or its UI, has some kind of problem, we are not going to be able to see our NFTs on like that platform where it's minted with that visual representation. So that is a kind of risk there, I think. But Isaiah, any thoughts?
No, I think it's interesting as well because like this is not really like NFT or crypto based, it's more like artistic based, but because like the perception of like the digital is something that it's always there for everyone to see. But I think what we don't realize is that actually behind our screens there are a lot of like physical things going on as well, and like you mentioned, there's a lot of like broken links, and there's a lot of things that might go wrong, and like we have this thing keeps coming up. We're saying that this technology is so new. I don't think anyone has really fully grasped NFTs, and especially when you're talking about like conservation. Yeah.
But I mean, these are issues that net art, digital art have been experiencing since like early days of net art,
ages,
right? Yeah. So these aren't problems only pertinent to NFTs. So Zara's question on whether NFTs can help that, I don't know yet, but maybe I can look into it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, another question by Jason. So how to negotiate between introducing a new platform for artists to disseminate or sell their art, and the environmental cost of minting NFTs? Is there data available to compare?
Big question, Jason.
Question. I think we have slightly kind of like prepared for that as well about the environmental impact. So do you want to start with?
Sure. And I do think it's important for us to talk about the environmental impact, right? Because we have seen so many different people reporting on how energy intensive and inefficient the Ethereum blockchain can be because of the particular process that it runs on. So without getting into too much of the jargon, but I think a lot of people respond to this with one saying that, they are trying to move towards a more energy efficient kind of process. There are other blockchains like Tezos that we talked about on Nung that is much more energy efficient. Apparently, minting one NFT takes up about as much energy as it does to send a single tweet. That's some of the calculations that have been put out there. But yeah, I don't know if there's really like concrete authoritative data out there that we can use to back up this conversation. Those are kind of the two ways that people have responded to this. One is that, they're trying to improve the technology. We're still in early days. Be patient, give it some time to grow and become more sustainable. And then other people are saying, well, there are these alternative platforms that you can turn to instead that are perhaps more sustainable. But if, Jason, your question is whether it is worth it to be using this technology that does come with this potential environmental costs, just for the sake of, being introduced to this new platform to sell, to disseminate, I don't know if those costs and benefits are worth it for every single artist. I do think it is quite specific to each artist's practice. If you are, say, a digital native artist where this wasn't possible for you before, maybe this is an entirely new sales channel that's going to be very, very important to you. Or even for other kinds of artists, for example, for someone like Isaiah, who is a photographer, maybe this is going to allow Isaiah to present his works to entirely new people. Maybe it will prompt him to experiment with his photography in new ways. But at the very least, it could introduce him to new collectors, a new platform to advertise and reach out to people about his work. But is that going to be coherent with his longer term practice? How would that interact with his off-chain kind of artistic production and creation? I think that's up to each artist to sort of think about. And it goes back to that question of, do you want to take up this digital space? Yeah. Isaiah, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, well, I don't really have direct like opinions, but I have technical information, but so basically I think what Clara has been talking about, like Tezos and Tezos versus like Ethereum blockchain. So basically, the Ethereum blockchain takes up a lot of like energy because like how did they use this process called proof of work? So proof of work basically means that you get very powerful computers, usually in factory size, kind of that's how big their servers are, to kind of like solve a complex mathematical algorithm. And as we know, that will take up a lot of energy. So that's the main concern that everyone has now about the high energy consumption and how it's polluting the environment, which is very bad. And whereas Tezos and the platform that we have been championing, I don't want to butcher the name, but it uses this process called proof of stake. So proof of stake, in a very basic and layman kind of like explanation, is so basically it's a peer-to-peer verification of the ledger. So it's based on your stake in the market, you'll be able to authenticate based on how much stake you have in the market. So I know I'm not explaining this in the most eloquent way, but there's always Google. But basically using peer-to-peer technology, obviously it uses lesser power and lesser energy as compared to running an entire server farm, as that's what they're called. But yeah, cool. Right. Last question. Okay, from Jax. Jax. Sorry. Right. He says, great presentation, Clara. Wanted to know if historically there has been similar transactional exchange with artwork, not technological, of course, but maybe some sort of secretive barter trading.
Similar transactional exchange with artwork. So I guess my interpretation of that question is if artworks have been exchanged with like kind of like abstract representation of ownership. Is that quite what you're asking, Jax?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I guess with conceptual art, I don't know if there is some kind of like secretive barter trading, but I guess, yeah, so maybe let's talk about Maurizio Catalan's like banana piece at Art Basel, Miami. I think that was late 2019, right? So if someone had purchased that work, they wouldn't necessarily be like purchasing that banana on the wall that was like naturally rotting. They would have been purchasing proof of that idea tied to that banana artwork. That's about, trade, that's about, like consumerism and all of this stuff. And so you are already kind of purchasing into an abstract idea that represents the concept behind the artwork. Or, for example, a very common example people give is Solowit's instructional drawings, right? So when you purchase one of those works, you get that like proof of authenticity, and then you get those instructional drawings for how the work can be physically manifested if you follow those kind of rules and instructions, which maybe isn't so far off as to like if you follow the rules and instructions to retrieve a file of an NFT, I don't know, then you can realize that work from Solowit's instructional drawings. So I think with conceptual abstract performance art, there's already a basis for artworks being traded, being shared, being reproduced, being exhibited based off of these more abstract representations of the artwork. So that intangibility that represents an artwork isn't new to art history.
Ooh, yeah, I think that's all the question. But I kind of want to, because you mentioned about Miami Art Basel, which makes me think about the sustainability question as well. The last question by Jason, and art is like largely like nomadic as well, and it's based on experiences you have, and there's a lot of like art fairs around. So I'm not trying to like apply like a check and balance kind of thing, or one's good, one's better. But I mean, we all know that art fairs they notoriously drive up a lot of carbon emissions as well from people flying all around the world. So I don't know, perhaps NFTs or the marketplace could be the lesser of evils. I mean, I don't know. So I mean, this is just a thought that I have, but yeah. So if anyone has any last question, you can feel free to come online. Feel free to like type in the chat. This is the part where there's a 10 there's like 10 seconds of silence. But if not, thanks everyone for coming, and especially thank you to Clara for preparing for condensing such a huge topic into 1 hour, and yeah. So, Maddie.
Hi, Maddie.
Do you have any question? No, or you're just here to say hi?
I just wanted to second that. That was a wonderful talk, and thank you so much for joining us and being a part of our symposium. It's such a delight to have you. But that was all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks so much for putting this together, especially like Maddie and Isaiah had like a 2-hour phone call like a week ago just to talk through like all the different kind of thoughts and speculations and hypotheses I had around NFTs to then distill this to perhaps some of the topics that could be of most interest for the symposium. So yeah, thank you guys so much for having me, for putting all of this together. And yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Thank you. And just to plug our next event, which is happening right now, Jem Sadam is coming in conversation with us, one of Britain's most seminal landscape photographers. So do join us at, I mean, the link is on our website or on our Instagram at voidco. So it is v.oidco to find the link. And if not, thank you, Clara. Have a great night. And
thank you.
We'll speak soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.